yo, what's up, fam? What's poppin'? Today, we're doing chapter 2 of the masterpiece, Working with the Law, right? Let's get right into it, brother. I'm excited. Chapter 2 is the law of thinking, right? So, what is thinking? Let's look on Google. What does Google say first? Because I like definitions. Thinking, the process of using one's mind to consider or reason about something. So thinking is the process of using one's mind to consider or reason about something, right? So the law of thinking, as a simple definition, it's just the fact that man has the ability to think about what he wants to think. Man has the ability to reason about something using his mind. As I was saying in the other video, actually, if you haven't watched it, I'll put it somewhere, I don't know. It's just an intro to this series, but check it out as well. But right here, the law of thinking, very simply, is just our ability as human beings to reason, because the reason is it's one of our intellectual faculty. So as men, we have an ability to reason about things. We have ability to think about things, to analyze things, to choose things, to accept certain ideas or reject certain ideas, right? That's the reasoning faculty. So that's what the law of thinking is about, right? Let's get right into the book right now. Let's get it. So, to the average person, life is an enigma, a deep mystery, a complex, an incomprehensible problem, or appears so. But it is very simple if one holds the key. Mystery is only another name for ignorance. All things are mysterious when they're not understood, but when we understand life, it no longer appears mysterious. Alright? So, from these two lines, what I'm getting here is that our biggest problem as people is ignorance, right? So, life tends to be mysterious, or life tends to be hard, or we kind of feel like life is happening to us because we don't really understand how things work, right? Like me, for example, before I came across this information, my life was confusing, man. I was like, fuck. I didn't know where I was going. I still don't really know, to be honest. I'm still trying to figure this whole shit out. But I got ideas and directions now. But I didn't know where I was going. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I've been depressed. I've been on negative thoughts and vibrations for a long time. But when I started learning this shit and I started understanding like how life works by these rules, quote unquote, these laws, everything somehow started to make sense because I started learning how to be in control, like how to control my thoughts, how to control my feelings, and how to control my actions so that I can start making things that I really want happening in my life, right? Instead of getting life happen to me, I started learning how I can be in control so that I can make things happen, if that kind of makes sense. We need to chase knowledge. That's the basic idea from these two lines. We need to learn how self work, especially how self as persons, because it doesn't really matter how hard you work or how whatever you're doing, if you don't really understand yourself as a person, because it's you trying to make and trying to have all these things, all these goals. So if you can understand how you work, then you will be way more efficient so that you can make these things happen, if that makes sense, right? Okay, so that's round two. Alright, let's get it. Man is a progressive being, a creature of constant growth, before whom lies an illimitable ocean of progress to be navigated and conquered only by development and culture of his inherent powers. The progress of the individual is largely determined by his ruling mental state, because the mind is the basic factor in governing power in the entire life of the man. Attention should be given to the predominant mental state, for it will regulate the actions and directions of all one's forces, faculties, and powers, the sum total of which will inevitably determine many particular experiences and the personal fate. The ruling state of the mind is made up of various mental attitudes which the individual adopts toward things, events, and life in general. If his attitudes are broad in mind, optimistic in tone, and true to life, his predominant mental state will correspond and exhibit a highly constructive and progressive tendency. As almost all the forces of the personality function through the conscious mind in one way or another, and as the daily mental and physical acts are largely controlled by the conscious mind, it is obvious that the leading mental state will determine the direction in which the powers of the individual are to proceed. This one is pretty deep. Let me break it down real quick. I can see a few ideas here. But first of all, I like it says the progress of the individual is largely determined by his ruling mental state, because the mind is the basic factor in governing power in the entire life of man. Attention should be given to the predominant mental state, for it will regulate the action and direction of all one's forces, faculties, and powers, the sum total of which will inevitably determine many particular experiences and the personal fate. So, what's the ruling mental state? What's the ruling state? Ruling, it's like controlling, right? Governing. And state is pretty much our condition. Yeah. So let's go with condition. The particular condition. Yeah. So our condition, I'll go a little deeper and say state is like I think I'll define state as how we feel, right? Condition that someone or something is at a specific time. So how you feel at a specific time. So the ruling mental state is the idea that pretty much is ruling, or the idea that is controlling you in that moment. So if your ruling mental state is happiness, then you're gonna feel happy. If your ruling mental state is sadness, then you're gonna feel sad and you're gonna act sad, right? That's why here, let me get it back. It says attention should be given to the predominant mental state, for it will regulate the action and direction of all one's forces, faculties, and powers, right? So the the biggest idea is that we need to figure out how to be in a constructive ruling mental state, because our ruling mental state controls pretty much our body. Because as I was saying in that other video, actually if you haven't checked that, you can look it up. I'll put it somewhere, maybe here or on the other side. That's the intro video to this series. But I thought about the mind being like the computer. I mean, the body being like the computer, and the mind is the software running the computer. So if your software has constructive and positive thoughts, then your computer is going to run positively, right? Meaning, if in your mind you practice thinking constructively, mostly about yourself, then you start acting that way. First of all, you're going to start feeling this way, and then you start acting that way. But the idea is to practice. And you also got to study so that you can understand and actually believe it. Because I can be talking here, especially if you never ever read or watched the video, or if you never came across this information, this is all probably Chinese for you. But you gotta stay with it. Get the book, get my little ebook. It's free. You can check on the video. There's a link right there. Download it and just start reading one page a day. That will give you understanding. Because like as I was saying earlier, you don't want to be ignorant, right? You want to be in control. And the only way to get that is through understanding. Understanding comes through study. So you gotta study, bro. It's not even hard. One page a day, you'll be good. Let's get it. Let me get back to the ruling mental state. So as the ruling mental state is pretty much that idea that controls our body in that moment. So if on the, let's say on a 24-hour basis, your ruling mental state is quote unquote negative, then you're gonna have a bad day, dude. That's actually how we have bad days, because we let the outside ideas control our thinking, and then we start feeling all those bad ideas about us, and then everything is fucked up at that point. But what we gotta do here, like for me, when I started understanding this, let's take the farmer who's farming tomatoes or onions or watermelons, whatever it is, right? So the farmer trying to grow his plants, next to the plants, there always gonna be some bad seeds, right? Bad leaves. And the farmer knows that he has to take them off, because if he doesn't take them off, they're gonna keep growing around his fruits or his veggies and fuck them up, because the bad seeds will start exceeding the good seeds, and then it's fucked up. That's why the farmers every day comes to his farm and then start removing the bad seeds and then take care of the good seeds, right? It's the same idea, right? If you take your mind as a garden, the ruling mental state, the more constructive ideas you plant into the garden, then they start growing, right? There was this guy, Emerson. Emerson says, whatever you give energy to will grow. So it's the same thing. If your ruling mental state, if your garden, if you keep planting bad seeds, then bad seeds will keep growing. And then you become a freaking mega jig bad seed, right? But the point is, you gotta cultivate your garden with constructive ideas, especially about yourself. And that's the hardest part, because it's really, really hard to think positive when you have a bunch of problems, or you have a bunch of debts, or you have a bunch of bad grades, or things like that. That's why you gotta study, man. Because it's not blind faith, it's faith based on understanding. You gotta understand. And the only way to understand, you gotta study, bro. Like I always say, one page a day, you'll be great. but you gotta study and you gotta practice constructive thinking all the time. You gotta create a positive environment around you, even if whatever you are is too negative, or you don't really see how you're gonna get out of there. As long as you have access to the internet, man, you can create a positive environment around you. It's never been easier, man. There is like a billion podcasts, a billion YouTube videos, free books all over the place, successful people that are actually reaching out through social media right now because it's never been easier. So, man, you can create that environment around you, but you gotta practice like day in and day out. That's how I think we should do, and that's what I do, man. And yeah, man, that's what I do. Let me keep going. Thought is a subtle element. Although it's invisible to the physical sight, it is an actual force or substance, as real as electricity, light, heat, water, or even stone. We are surrounded by a vast ocean of thought stuff through which our thoughts pass like currents of electricity or tiny streaks of light or musical waves. You can flash your thoughts from pole to pole completely around the world many times in less than a single second. Scientists tell us thought is compared with the speed of light. They tell us our thoughts travel at the rate of 180,000 miles per second. Goddamn. Our thoughts travel 930,000 times faster than the sound of our voice. I no other force or power in the universe yet known is as great or as quick. It's a proven fact scientifically that the mind is a battery of force, the greatest of any known element. Man, this book is crazy, bro. God damn. Okay. Hmm. This one is a little deep. Let me see how am I gonna think about this. Huh. Huh. Let me think real quick. Thought is a subtle element. Although invisible to the physical sight, it's an actual force or substance as real as electricity, light, heat, water, or stone. Here is just saying that the thoughts are real. So, I mean, I think most people, we all kind of know that already. The thoughts are real, and you can flash your thoughts from pole to pole completely around the world many times in less than a single second. And as I was saying earlier, the mind, the computer, right? So the processing is super fast. As they're saying right here, in less than a single second from pole to pole, our thoughts travel at a rate of 186,000 miles per second and 930,000 times faster than the sound of the voice. I mean, the way I'm getting this, like, I mean, we have that mental faculty, right? So we can think. And because the thoughts are such powerful forces, the way I'm understanding this, that's why you can think about anything you want. Because the thought, it's kind of like a destination, right? So it's a place, kind of like you put your address in the GPS. So it's a place where you want to be or you want to go. So what we have to do is to keep that idea in place, right? And then figure out how to get there. I mean, it sounds pretty simple. It's a pretty simple principle, but it can be harder to implement, especially if you have Like the people that have big goals, the people that are trying to be entrepreneurs, the people that are trying to be millionaires and things like that. I mean, everybody kind of know that if I want to have a goal, I got to think about it and but how do I make it happen? Our thoughts are destinations. They're like places where we want to be, where we want to go. And it's kind of like if you want to go maybe on a trip, or if you want to, I mean, any kind of travel, right? You think about that destination, you see yourself in that place, right? You start dreaming about what you're gonna do when you get there. You start thinking about it, you start feeling good about it, right? And then from there, even if you broke, or even if you don't really know how, then you start figuring out how to get there, right? But the ruling mental state had to be the fact that you want to go on that travel, so that you start feeling so good about that idea that you had to figure out how to make it happen. And it's that same simple principle here, right? But the bigger the thought, the harder it's gonna be, the longer it's gonna take. But it does not mean that it cannot happen, right? Whatever, how, whatever big your goal is, however big your goal is, it doesn't even matter. Somebody else might have done it already, or might have figured it out already. So if one man can, somebody else's can. Tony Robbins always says that success leaves clues. So if you can find these people, reverse engineer, figure out what and how they did, and implement that step by step into your life, then that's how you put yourself into that position to make it happen for you. But before that, you got to understand how your mind works, so that just like the farmer, whenever you get a lot of bad seeds, or you get a lot of negativity or self-doubt around you, then you can figure out how to keep taking action despite of all these negative thoughts, because negative thoughts are always gonna be there, man. Like this video I'm doing right now, I didn't want to fucking do it. I was tired, man, but I was like, I've committed to vlogging about this, so I gotta take the action necessary to make it happen. It doesn't matter how I feel. The only thing that matters is the idea, the destination where I want to go. So I'm taking the actions necessary to make it happen, and forcing myself, being disciplined to do every day a little bit at a time what I have to do to make it happen. So that's the idea here. Let's keep going. Something that we must deal with two forces. That is, to attract the good, we must do away with the bad. But this is not true. For example, if we're cold, we do not work with cold and heat alike. Interesting. Let me say that again. Something that we must deal with two forces. That is, to attract the good, we must do away with the bad. But this is not true. For example, if we're cold, we do not work with cold and heat alike in order to get warm. We build a fire, and as we gather around the fire, we enjoy the heat that is extended from it and become warm. As we build up warmth, the cold disappears, for cold is the absence of heat. Woo-hoo! Ay, ay, ay. To be warm, we give our whole thoughts to those things which tend to create warmth. We ignore the cold in thinking of heat and bring forth heat. Prosperity and poverty are not two things. They are merely two sides of one and the same thing. There are but one power, rightly or wrongly used. We cannot think of plenty, then worry about the unfavorable condition that may seem apparent. This one is really, really good. Something that we must deal with two forces. That is to attract the good, we must do away with the bad. But this is not true. For example, if we're cold, we do not work with cold and heat alike in order to get warm. It's a little bit what I was saying earlier, right? It's kind of like, let's take this coin right here, for example, right? There is two sides to the coin, but it's only one coin. It's one coin and two sides. So that's what he's saying here. Something that we must deal with two forces. But it's not two forces, it's one force, two sides, right? It's like up and down. There is up and down. It's up is the opposite side of down. Right is the opposite side of left. In is the opposite side of out, right? So it's the same side, opposite side of the same coin. So if you want to get warm, you cannot get warm by having cold and heat at the same time, right? That's what he's saying here. We do not work with cold and heat alike in order to get warm. We build a fire, and as we gather around the fire, the heat is extended from it and we become warm, right? As we build up warm, the cold disappears, for cold is the absence of heat. Woo woo! Comes back to the environment idea, right? The environment idea, where I was saying that you got to create that positive environment around you, especially if where you are is it's kind of fucked up, right? But you cannot work with heat and cold at the same time and expect to get warm. Just like the farmer, you cannot have bad seeds in your garden and good seeds and expect the good seeds to grow. It's not gonna work. So we have to figure out, as in we, everyone, all of us, starting from me, we have to figure out how to work with the warmth and then remove the cold. But that's the hardest part. A lot of superstars, they always talk about positivity. Oh, positivity this, positivity that. But dude, how the fuck do you stay positive, man? That's the problem. How the fuck do we stay positive? By practicing, right? As I was saying in the other video, exercising discrimination, right? Exercise warmth, exercise constructive thinking, exercise thinking for yourself, and then study. Because if you exercise and you don't study, when it gets hard, you're gonna quit because you don't really understand why you're doing it, right? That's why, again, I have the book. I'll put it on this video. Again, I'll have a link. This book is free. Download it. Just study, man. Especially for my people out there that have big dreams. This is the key, man. This is like a blueprint, and I have like a bunch of other information that I'm studying like this, that I'm gonna be vlogging about in the next videos. But right from here, the biggest idea in the biggest ideas in everything that I just said right here, especially this first chapter, the law of thinking, it's mostly about having a right ruling state. That's what I would say, because we have that ability to think, so we can think for ourselves. So what we have to do is choose these ideas that we really want and let these ideas rule our state. Let these ideas govern our mind. Whatever your goal is, let's say for example, your goal is to become a CEO. you're about to graduate, or you just graduate, you want to become a CEO, whatever it is, let that idea become your ruling mental state, right? See yourself as a CEO. Start acting like the CEO. Start talking like a CEO. Act as if you're already the CEO. It's, I mean, some that never really, the people that never really studied or came across or had any relationship with this information. But I don't know if you guys ever heard that concept of fake it until you make it. I don't think it's really fake it until you make it. I think it's do it until you make it. Yeah, that's what I think, because you can do anything, man. If you can think it, if you can say it, then you can do it. But in practical and action steps, it's a little harder because you have self-doubt. We have fears. That's a big one. We have fears, we have this, we have that, right? But I'm gonna be hitting those topics in later videos, because pretty much everything is covered in the book. But right now, actionable steps, right? Let's understand first that we have that ability to think. We can think, we can think anything that we want. And it's not two forces, it's one force and two sides, right? If this is positive, this is negative, then you can choose. So make a fucking choice, brother. Make a choice, right? Make a choice. Take out the bad seeds, right? First off, let me do 3 points. One, understand that we have that thinking faculty. Two, make sure that our ruling mental state, the idea that is governing, the idea that we think about all the time, the ideas that we think about all the time are actually what we really, really want. And three, make sure that we create that warmth, positive environment around us so that it can reinforce these ideas and these things that we want to do, kind of like adding wood to the fire, right? You pump it, pump it, pump it, pump it, pump it, and then it boom.